a lot of wire work?
Yeah, I mean, as Supergirl, there was a lot of wire work, green screen, and all of that. That was my first foray into that, and I've done a lot of it since with Bitten. V was an entirely green screen show. We had no props, nothing. Yeah, it was just tape.
And the big
So
thing
it
about,
prepared me for that, I guess.
yeah, the big thing about green screen too is it's just so much of it you have to create in your own mind, and it's shocking because you go in there and depending on how you work, like I need to know technically how it is being seen, how big something is really important. You don't want to overreact to something and then have them in post make it really small, and you're like, wow, I'm really scared of this, but it's super perfect looking. Like you have to have a team that works with you in that, but it also teaches you how much you can depend on what they do technically. And you don't have to be so nervous. Like when I first came on the show, I'd be so nervous. I was like, what do you want me to do? And I have to jump off this? And how is that even going to look cool?
Your mother's death or whatever it may be. And it's just about like basically Wilson. I mean, we're keeping on paying. So,
Right. Well, yeah, it sharpens your skills, I guess. It really forces you to bring that game when you have so limited things to interact with. Is there also sort of this kinship, especially amongst women, like this kinship working in genre, because you guys can kind of trade notes and have sort of inside language about this world that maybe other actors out there don't necessarily have or know.
Like having to wear outfits you can't move in?
I guess that would be part of it. Yeah, like you know what goes on.
yes. I mean, for the seasons I was on the show, I was in like jean shorts and a crop top trying to do stunts. So as a woman, yeah, you got to find a way around that, but also try to voice, your opinion about maybe changing things up to make it more comfortable for yourself and for what you're doing. Which I think back when we were doing the show, or especially myself, I was scared to voice my opinion. Now I'm not. If it's right for me and it makes me comfortable, it's important. But I think back then I just wanted to please everybody.
Yeah, I had a similar experience too, but Smallville was where I learned to find a voice.
Mm-hmm.
And it was hard. It took a long time, and it wasn't easy, and I used to try and take calls with producers, and I would only do it on the phone, because every time I voiced my opinion about something when I was 19 or 20, I'd just start crying. And I felt so alone in that experience. So it was so hard to gain that voice, and now that I have it, it's so empowering and easier to support other women that I work with, younger women especially, who are coming in and who are very tentative and scared and feel like they're replaceable, just to tell them that they really aren't, and that they can say no or find alternative solutions to things, and that doesn't make them a problem. It makes them strong.
But that's because it's not just finding your voice, it's helping other people find their voice and hopefully affecting the overall industry. So now when you step onto the set of Supergirl, do you find that that impact has been felt? Like that it is an easier time for actors and specifically for female actors on set?
One of the things I noticed, and again, it sounds like I'm speaking to the surface level, but it's not. But it's what you see right away. So I think it was Ginger Rogers that says we do everything a man does except backwards and in heels, and we still have to go out and then do that. And I remember being on Smallville, and we'd be running away from zombies, running up hills, running outside. I'm wearing 4-inch heels and a spaghetti dress, and God bless Tom, he's got his hiker boots and 5 layers of clothes on. And I'm like, I'm glad you're warm, and I'm freezing, and there's all these other things that you have to continually keep doing, and I'm not complaining, it's just a fact of the way it is. And then when I went out to Supergirl, what was very interesting is Melissa, here is playing Supergirl, she was wearing flat boots. I hadn't seen that in all the different things. She's like, I am not going to do any of those things, and anything I can't move properly in. And so it sounds like it's inconsequential, but it's not.
It's a huge change from when we started.
When we started, and even what her outfit is, and what she's wearing, and what she's representing, and what they're focusing on. So, yeah.
Yeah, gone is like the short shorts and the crop top or whatever. Yeah.
I mean, it just shows you how far we've come.
Yeah.
The first thing I wanted to do was burn my wardrobe as soon as not the S, not the S. I never had the S. I I didn't have no Erica.
I watched it. I promise I watched
That's good, because we're going to quiz you now on every single episode of the show. Both ones you were in, episodes you weren't in, yes. Actually, that's a good segue to audience question. Hi, right up front. What's your question?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Well, first off, thank you all of you guys for coming to Austin. We're fans of you guys, and you guys are so nice and wonderful. And I wanted to say, like earlier, I told y'all that I showed y'all like I had so much. And I showed Michael earlier, and I wasn't expecting reaction because I thought he was going to be serious. But my honest question is, like, is it cool if y'all could teach me the Canadian national anthem?
I did not see that one coming. A lot of times I can predict where the question's going. You, sir, tip of that.
Are there any other Canadians in the room?
I'm not going to actually make them sing the anthem, but I'm willing to bet that they have a better grasp on the Canadian anthem than Americans have on our national anthem on average. I could be wrong, I don't know. But not going to ask you to sing, but do you think you know? Oh, okay. I was really trying to give you an out on this.
We're going for it.
Oh man. Okay.
We started it, didn't stand, and didn't finish it.
Yeah.
And we don't love our country.
I love your country.
That was awesome.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for giving me a surprising question today. That's good. No pressure, sir, but that was pretty good. What's your question?
Thank you for coming. Question to be for any of y'all. Now today they kind of actually mentioned earlier about everyone's sharing their workout routines and diets and stuff. When y'all were shooting, I'm just curious to know, all of you had some action sequences and fight scenes. Did y'all, train or what were your routines like?
Yeah, any training routines or anything?
I mean, mine's really boring. I just worked out. That's all. It's exciting.
Good and important.
I grew up doing martial arts, so I started when I was 7. So I have my second degree black belt when I started.
She's like
Smallville.
a real, yeah.
No, I enjoy a good fight. That sounds horrible. Tried to do a lot of the stunts on that, and that came in handy in my martial arts background.
I did a lot of, I just did a lot of running. I did a lot of yoga, a lot of stretching, and I worked up my aggression in like a kickboxing bag at home. And
Did you do Taebo?
no, I didn't. So yeah, and then of course whenever we would work on the day, they would bring in people that knew how to do those things. That's the other thing that, we're not always afforded the time. You talk about people that say, oh, I'm going to decide to be a fighter, and they go off for a year and they study it, or they transplant themselves to another country. You don't have that when you're shooting a TV series. You've got, we're shooting this today, here's the man or woman that knows how to do it. Come over here, and you've got, you're getting mic'd at the same time. They're like, let's show you some fight moves, and you try to work it out as fast as you can. But we definitely relied on people that are incredibly talented and skilled, and then we worked with them.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
You guys played some iconic characters when you guys were playing your individual roles, and you guys did an amazing job. They stand as my favorite versions of those characters today. But given that when you guys step into those roles, the state of social media and YouTube comic book shows, critiques, weren't what they are now, would you guys be more nervous about playing that iconic role today than you were when you first started?
I actually think I'd be less nervous. I was thinking about this the other day. I remember when I was cast, and it was a really big deal that I didn't have red hair. It was a really, really big deal. And it wasn't even a question about being half Asian, like we just pretended that I wasn't. That was just. But now I feel like you could change the character to be more representative of a non-background, and it wouldn't be as, it would be a big deal in some some circles, but as a whole, it makes it more accepted. And I love that. I think that's pretty awesome. Although there is a lot more pressure.
Yeah.
I find for myself, I tend to live in a bit of a rabbit hole. Like I have a very small existence outside of coming to work in these forums, and so I don't really pay attention to a lot of the stuff that's going on, even in social media. I'm a little bit, I'm not great at it. I'm learning.
You're great.
I'm getting better, but I wasn't. Chris was the one that actually got me on social because I wouldn't do it. You know what I mean?
People.
I know, which is highly ironic. My point being, even when I came on to do the show, I really kind of blocked out, like I didn't know how intense that was, you know, to be playing that character. And then I lucked out because I was playing a character, the incarnation of her was earlier in her life, although at the beginning I was in a lot of trouble for even being part of Clark's world, and the world might have exploded had we seen each other, that sort of thing. So that was really stressful at the beginning, but it also allowed her to kind of find her way and be clumsy, and it worked with the character, and it worked with storytelling. So my personality type, I do tend to avoid a lot of the stuff that even like, you know, we were talking about going to see a movie earlier, and you're like, what did you're telling me about all the critics said, and I'm like, oh, really? I really like that. So I kind of live a little bit in my own bubble.
I agree, and I mean, I'm very similar to Erica in that I like to be in my own bubble. I also think it's great that, you know, so many things have changed in this day and age, but I do think I would have felt more pressure had I been cast as Supergirl now, with the social media forums, people hiding behind screens, making comments. That would be a really unhealthy environment for me to have been cast in my first American series and a superhero. So there was already pressure back in the day when none of this existed that I put on myself, and we're great at putting pressures on ourselves. So to have had that in addition to it, I don't know if I could have handled it. So, you know, with Melissa, all of the superheroes, everything we have today, they're dealing with so much more pressure than we did, I think. Absolutely. Just publicly.
Well, you know, because the show kind of straddled this line of before social media and then after social media, you know, really kind of exploding in the 04, 05 time. Did you notice, and I guess, Kristin, why don't you start with this, did you notice sort of like, was there a shift in the middle where it's like, oh, now you can't really be actors without, or do a whole lot of things in the media without having some social media footprints.
It's like a necessary evil.
Yeah, it's like, was there a push to like, oh, now you guys got to get on social, or oh, hey, you need to pay attention to this stuff now?
You know what? I think I missed it entirely. I don't think I got any social media until after I left Smallville. Yeah. And I don't believe anyone else on the show did either.
We were still the show where the people weren't allowed to have phones on set. You know, like to
Really?
take pictures. Like when I was working there at the end of it, and we were trying to keep something under wraps, it was the obvious. Like it was the opposite to what it is now. It was, don't let people in to see it. Create the hype by not having it. So anybody who was working on the set, any background players that we had, anything, they weren't allowed to have their phones. So it was completely
That's fascinating though, because that also means that it was established enough that enough people were carrying around, you know, around 2007, I guess, is when everybody started carrying around like smartphones, you know?
Yeah. Well, now it's sort of expected as well. This is behind the scenes videos that your actors are posting. It's
You have to be more involved all the time. Yeah, it certainly wasn't like that when Smallville was on. We just missed it.
So with that now, when you work on television, is it feel like there's less of the ability to have an off switch since someone is always doing behind the scenes, or someone's always trying to do an Instagram story on set, where there's this whole social media marketing team? Is it feel more like you're working all the time?
Well, I'll just answer quickly because the show I'm on right now is a drama that doesn't have a ton of publicity with a department that's not super savvy when it comes to social media. So we do like little things every once in a while, but it's very clear that that's what we're doing on that day. And so it doesn't overwhelm me. But I imagine because these guys work on, you know, really big shows, I imagine it's more present there.
I mean, just as an example, I have a new show coming out on Netflix, and the publicity person called me to ask me to go into my Instagram and find out the demographic ratio of male versus female and what ages they are that follow me. Really? Yeah.
Whereas you're
And
like,
that's
I would
what
like to
we're
learn my
gonna-
lines.
Yeah, and I didn't even know you could do that. Now I'm aware of it and I see it, and it's just another thing to think about. But that's how they're going to promote my character to those demographics. They're going to gear it to that. That's crazy.
Fascinating. I wonder if they go another season, if they'll change the character. I wonder.
Yeah. It's just a whole different, and the cast based on
What I
numbers.
don't like
too,
about
which is
that either
crazy.
is, I mean, we all know that there's a sense of being a product, and that's okay, and you buy into that so that you get the opportunity to work because we love to create. So I'm not complaining at all, but what I find interesting is in casting and many of all those other things, they're now making decisions based on social media accounts that aren't based in reality. So then what do you do? So you're going in, like even last year there was a couple of scenarios where I was up against some people and we were, and I thought that's not the truth. But their social media platform was so much better and so much more slick that it looked like a better, like the experience level wasn't as much, they hadn't done as much as I had, And I'm not talking about, it's just weird. It's weird. I mean, I know we already live in a world where you don't actually have to have a resume to get a big job, right? But that being said, we're also getting older. Could be anyone I'm talking about.
But it's the influencer influence on the media, on jobs that people that have a big following, but not necessarily the talent to support it, get jobs.
Yeah.
It is a fact. Yes. Sorry.
Really long answer.
That was my fault. I interjected, but you got all that. It was really good, though. I like insight. I mean, look, I enjoy the Rosenbaum panel, but it's nice actually asking questions.
We're not doing diarrhea jokes, guys.
I saved some time.